Welcome to Just Love Radio. We had a small technical glitch there, nothing huge. I'm Kip Baldwin. This is Just Love, and thank you all for sharing the love with me tonight. I do want to thank Sherry for giving a little teaser of a new feature we're going to be adding to the show. Very, very dear friend of mine, family basically, Carol Hulse had sent me a song called, what's the name of that song? That's What's Up, that she heard on a cover version of from Nashville. And so I'm going to start in the future asking if everyone could send in their favorite songs, and about halfway through the show, we'll go ahead and give a shout out to the song, to the listener that sent the song in, and we'll play it about midway through the show. And you can send your song suggestions to just love movement radio at gmail.com. Again, that's just love movement radio at gmail.com. So that was the little tease you heard at the beginning. You'll get to hear the rest of the song about halfway through the show. Before we get going, I want to do what I'm going to do at every beginning of every show, is ask everyone to stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Think with your hearts about all the things you have to be grateful for. Just breathe in gratitude. Breathe out thanks. For me, right in this moment, the thing I'm most grateful for is I have the most amazing, wonderful, giving group of friends any being could ask for. I also have a special thanks to give to my beautiful, beautiful black lab, Missy, who teaches me in every moment of every day what unconditional love really is. Anytime I get down or I'm feeling I've forgotten a little bit, I just look at her. She's never unhappy. She's never sad, and she's always willing to share love with everyone. So again, just breathe in gratitude. Breathe out love. Be still. Just take a moment out of your day. Just stop what you're doing and just really be grateful for all that we really do have. This is a life of abundance, not of scarcity, as we've been sort of programmed to believe. Let go of those beliefs. Start living in the abundance that you have. Be grateful for it. And you will find your life will change in ways I can't even tell you when you start living from that place of abundance and gratitude and love. Now, before I get to my guests, Harold Becker and John Goltz, true pioneers in the love movement, founders of the Love Foundation, creators of Global Love Day, which is on May 1st, I want to share with you a personal story. On my first show last week, I alluded several times to how my journey started. Well, I grew up in Camas, Washington, which is about a town of, I don't know, maybe 3,500 people when the story was told. And my dad and I had gone up to Seattle, Washington to see the Seahawks play. This was maybe 1977. And again, this was a small town. There was no astral projection or out-of-body experiences. I got home and I was exhausted. I was a little kid. This was a long trip. And much to my surprise, though, I started to fall asleep and I just left my body. I floated out over my bedroom. I left my house. I'm staring down at literally the roof of my house. I'm off the planet. I'm now looking back at Earth, and each step of the way it was like a voice but not a voice saying, take this all in. Then I'm out of the solar system. Again, looking back in, seeing the planet, seeing how everything moves around it and how it all has a certain flow to it. Then out of the galaxy. Then literally across the universe, past black holes, quasars, you name it, supernovas, experiencing all of this. Then I get out to the edge of the universe, and again, are you getting this? And it was finite. I could see the entire universe. It had borders. It could fit in my head somehow. Then I was turned out towards this darkness, this infinite darkness, and that's when I got it. I got this thing called infinity. And what that really meant was there is no end, there is no beginning, there can be no larger, no smaller. Everything is infinite. Everything is infinite, including you and I. That is the essential essence of our being, is infinity. That there can't be an end to us. There can't be a beginning to us. We are on this eternal journey of discovery, this eternal journey of love. And we need to embrace that unknown with all our hearts and all our soul, not be afraid of it. outside of that, the great thing about this experience with Infinity is it gave me, and again, I didn't know at 12 years old how this was connected to love or what this was. I was just, in fact, I didn't even know it was special to have this experience. And it's only recently that I'm starting to understand how truly remarkable this experience was. But what it really gave me more than anything else was far, far off perspective, where I could look in at things and I could see, again, how things work together. And I could see how all the dots connected. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this show, is connect all these dots of love that are out there and let people just really step back from themselves and see how we are all connected through this thing called love. And it's infinite. It doesn't stop here on Earth. It spreads out through everything forever, down to the level of quantum mechanics and up to things we can't even imagine yet. That's how my journey began. One of the dots that I've been so fortunate to connect with recently has been with Harold and John of the Love Foundation, and I would like to bring them on now to talk about how their journey began and where we think that love is taking us, and ultimately even perhaps where, at least in this experience, it will lead us to. So without further ado, I welcome my dear friends John Goltz and Harold Becker from the Love Foundation.
Pleasure to be here with you, Kip.
Fantastic. So we got over our technical difficulties there, and so why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourselves, how this all started for you, how you guys came to be together on this journey, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay. I'll start with my background, being shall I say, in the ancient 80s, as it feels like to me, that I was a banker. I went to school full time all the way through my master's degree, and also worked at the same time full time during the day. And I think that combination of theory and practical practice made me really begin to question life. And in 1990, I had this rather inner compelling urge to walk away from the career-type reality and embark upon a soul-searching, a self-awareness pathway that really just kind of unfolded this interior experience of me to find out all I could about me, life, the universe, and everything. And in that process of making those inner awakenings, it became very clear early on that love was a unifying factor in all the self-help teachings, everything that I was encountering. Love was the thing that kept popping up numerous times, and yet never seemed to be connected to all these various modalities, all these various wonderful ideas. And I had apparently the wisdom to hone in on this particular aspect of love and begin a journey of self-acceptance, self-awareness, and self-love. And in that, fast forwarding into the year 2000, in addition to what we've been doing in the 90s, writing books and being on PBS and doing various things, we decided to launch the nonprofit called the Love Foundation as a way to kind of expand our understanding and share what we've come to learn literally globally. And here we are 14 years later with the nonprofit, now 24 years into more or less awakened journey of sharing everything we can, exploring, I shall say, and then sharing everything we can find with the experience of love. The Love Foundation's primary vision is to inspire people to love unconditionally, and I think that, in essence, says everything, about us and the correlation with our collaboration with you and this wonderful show, and just simply being a voice for love.
How would you say when you started in the 80s, because I know even when I started 5 years ago in earnest to make this my life's mission by making a strange sort of pact with myself that I would, every day after I got done with my stillness and silence, my meditation, writing whatever came to me about love, and that I was committed to doing that every day, well, until the world changes from a foundation of fear to one of love, or until I die, whichever comes first. Hopefully the change will come first. I know that, everyone was around me, what are you talking about? Love. Okay, that's wonderful, Kip. How cute. What was it like in the 80s if this is how it was 5 years ago, although it's changed dramatically in the past 5 years? What was your first experience when you first started going down this path? How did people respond to you?
If I gave a lecture, and we lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, 90, if I gave a lecture there as I was sharing my newfound awareness about love, the resounding answer usually was, this is really nice, it's really appreciated, and don't give up your day job because it will never amount to anything. There was certainly a lot of willingness to look at it, but not necessarily a lot of grounded connection to it. And where people appreciated and respected it was so unusual that I guess perhaps one thing that we did well and continue to hopefully do well now is that our message of love is something that is extraordinarily practical and pragmatic. And so I think that caught people's attention. I can say even, as moving into the year 2000 and launching the Love Foundation, if it was peculiar and unusual to do it in 1990, where the dialogue wasn't really even on love in any way, shape, or form. They were just really a tiny, tiny group of people. Leo Buscaglia was one of the people that I had encountered in the 80s that was speaking of love.
Leo.
Dr. Bernie Siegel was doing love medicine and miracles. So there's certainly, pioneers, and I can imagine in their realms, they probably came off as even more bizarre than us. But even by 2000, it was, even a decade later, it was amazing to see how little receptivity there was initially, and how at times we felt like an island in the middle of a vast ocean, but we kept on doing it, and something that has been kind of our mantra for the Love Foundation is we simply want to bring the idea of unconditional love into the mainstream dialogue, how people can discuss it and what they'll find for themselves about it is up to them, but we just want to bring it to the mainstream dialogue. And I can say 14 years later, I'm sure with many people's efforts from around the world, and ours included, that people are much more receptive today and continue to be more receptive, and it is much more of a mainstream dialogue. Maybe not uber mainstream, and it's not going to show up in the news as quickly as we'd like, but certainly there is a dialogue going on, and in those initial days, I think we had to have a tremendous amount of naivete and perseverance to be motivated the way we were to continue on this journey and to just keep sharing.
And John, what about for you? How did this start for you? Your commitment to love and really changing the world's foundation from fear to love. How did that all first begin for you?
I think it really started with just a very introspective type of person. I remember in high school and college, thinking about life, wanting to know like the meaning of life and so forth. And after college, moving down to Tampa, meeting Harold, there was somebody in Harold that he and I would talk about life, the universe, and everything. Worked through personal issues and stuff. So it really was more of a personal journey into the self. And there came a point where it was like self-acceptance. This is who I am. I love myself. If nobody else is going to love me for who I am, I'm going to love myself for who I am. And in our relationship, in our partnership and stuff, there was just this constant striving for exploration and desire to know more. And it's fascinating now, of course, that for all that we do know, we realize there's so much that we don't know, that there's so much more to learn and understand about the universe.
It is an infinite journey.
Yeah. But, I've got a biology degree and, got me a few good jobs and everything, but it wasn't really fulfilling in the way that, this sharing, inspiring people to love unconditionally. That's the Love Foundation. Our vision is to inspire people to love unconditionally. And that has really become part of my own vision for my own personal life, is to make the world a better place. And for myself and for others. I think overall my personal philosophy, I finally did realize, to me, the meaning of life is found in unconditional love. But the actual experience of life is about joy. It's about being happy. It's about living our lives and finding happiness, and that changes as we go along, but it really is about, just enjoying our lives and knowing what that means on a deep inner level.
It's amazing how moving into that oneness or that journey to oneness, I should say, with unconditional love, moves you to this place of remarkable unselfishness. I was talking with my friend Jennifer Hillman this morning, and we're discussing how I guess there's some thinking out there that there's like 5 different waves of evolution that's coming for humanity, if you will. And we're sort of the first wave. And we're the ones that are opening the doors saying, we're trying to just make it, give you a foundation so that the next wave can operate or, start to fulfill their movement towards unconditional love more and more, and so on and so forth. And I know for myself personally, and I've told so many people this, and I think maybe some believe me, some think it's just a platitude, but I've lived a pretty full life, and if me not being here tomorrow would mean that the world would be a better place for the children that are here now and the children that will come after and the future generations, on and on and on, I would gladly do that. And that, and it dawned on me that could only come from a place of unconditional love. That is just how you feel. You want more for others than you want for yourself. But something you touched on, when you started to talk about your beginning on this path, was how it all starts with yourself. And I know we've discussed off air that it really does. You have to start with that unconditional love of self. That's
and you actually have to be selfish. You have to really be selfish enough to find out who you are.
Yes.
And unconditional love, in that sense, Harold actually describes it in his books. He defined it as an unlimited way of being. And he sort of breaks it down as that love is something that we experience, something that exists on a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. So it permeates our entire existence, but we don't always, acknowledge it in those ways, or we define it very narrowly. And then, of course, unconditional is about removing the restrictions, the judgments, the programs, everything that we've placed on these things of the rightness and wrongness and so forth. And when you just simply remove all of that, unconditional love is an unlimited way of being. And when we can approach life from that standpoint, the entire world starts to open up. You start changing your perspective because you say, I was taught this, but what if I look at it like that? And all of a sudden, you just see things so differently.
Yeah, I've described it as almost becoming selfishly empathetic, which seems like contradictory words in a way, but it really does. It feels so good when you start doing this that it does become almost a feeling of selfishness. Wow, I'm feeling so good. I just want to keep doing this, helping others because of the reaction they get, but not just because of that, but because it makes me feel incredible. And like you said, it really opens your life up in limitless, infinite ways that I unless you've experienced it and start giving yourself, it's hard to describe how wonderful that feeling is. I know for myself personally that when I help somebody, and I'm not talking even grand gestures, I'm saving somebody's life or anything like that. I'm talking a simple acknowledgement of a kindness that somebody shows you as you're going through a grocery store, or you just smile at somebody as you're driving through traffic and they smile back. Those sorts of acknowledgement brings such joy to me that again, it's hard to describe, but it's better than any feeling that I have in my life.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things along this pathway has been what does unconditional love really mean? How do you engage it every moment, every day in your life? And one of the things that does come along, it's like when you honor yourself, you honor everybody else. Well, what does that mean? And you have to get very clear. Things like meditation help you center yourself so you can follow your intuition and so forth. But there are times when logic would dictate one thing, but the feeling of a good feeling, a peaceful feeling, a harmonious feeling is opposite of what is expected. So sometimes it doesn't look like that's really unconditional love when you're saying no to somebody, or you're walking away and letting them fall off or something, because but when you're really in tune with yourself, that unconditionally loving space, it's not like you're being mean and pushing somebody down. It means that you're letting them to their own devices. You love them enough to let them go.
And that's a really important understanding to gain, because I think a lot of people think, oh, love and you're weak, and that's not what it is. In fact, I think maybe you're touching on a little bit of something I picked up from Harold when we were talking, or when he first began talking about practical and pragmatic. Could we expand on that thought about how your approach to unconditional love is a little bit different than that it's practical and pragmatic, and what that means exactly?
Well, the way I usually, there are like 3 or 4 foundational places that I like to start with people to help them better understand where I'm coming from, where we're coming from with our presentation. And those are not particularly any order, but one of them is that what we have within is what we give out. What we give out is what we get back. That's the circle of life. So I'll share with people, for example, if you have love within, of course, so you feel that love, then that's what you're going to give out, and that's what others will experience and give back to you, and that will complete the circle. If we have anger within, there's a really good chance we're going to spark the anger in someone else, which is going to then come back to us in that same energetic fashion. So there's a very practical process and purpose for becoming more loving towards ourselves and others, because the more we love, what I've learned is that the vast majority of humanity is still seeking externally for love. They're looking for love in all things outside themselves, in relationships, in family, in their careers, in the material things that they think they want to purchase. They're constantly looking to fulfill themselves externally, and it's been our exploration and awakening to understand that everything we need is right within ourselves. And we've heard these cliches for a long time, but in fact, it turns out they are quite true. I also like to share for people to recognize that this particular present moment, the now moment that we're living in, right here and now, is the most important and the only moment that we really live. Because yesterday was a memory and tomorrow is an imagination. So if we're going to make a choice, it's going to be physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually right in this particular moment, because it's one time where all of us can and needs to be present. So being present in the moment, then we get to pay attention, and again, not in particular any order, but when we can pay attention to our thoughts and our feelings in this present moment, we can begin to understand, are these thoughts and are these feelings genuinely who we are, who we're wishing to become, who we perceive ourselves to be, or is it an amalgamation of a lifetime's worth of voices from others, suggestions, learnings, teachings, as you mentioned the word platitudes, the cliches, just the myriad numbers of thoughts and feelings that are perhaps not actually ours. And when we can pull these fundamental pieces together and live in the present moment, be aware of our thoughts and feelings, realize what we have within is what we give out. What we give out is what comes back to us in full measure. That kind of practical understanding, coupled with one of the final ones that I'd like to share, is that our imagination is the seat of our creation. So in this particular moment, what we're imagining, whether it's yesterday's memories or somebody else's fears, or truly our own hopes and dreams, whatever we're imagining, whatever we're giving attention to, is what does manifest in the physical world. And for anyone listening here, in the audience, whether you're, sitting on a couch or in your car riding, listening to this, if you're in the house, for example, what was the house before it was a house? It was a series of materials, resources, labor. What was it before that? When you trace it back, at some point it was a blueprint, it was an idea. Someone had an idea to place that house in that place that you're currently sitting in. And that's the power of our imagination. Our imagination, held with desire long enough, we will gather all the resources, we'll gather all the necessary components to create our reality. So for us, and I think if you really appreciate this same type of understanding, is that if we're imagining love, we're going to create more love. It's simply a physical nature of us, it's the physics that we operate in this, time-space continuum. And as you often share, we have a choice of love or fear. If we're contemplating fear, we're going to create more fear because we're using the power of our imagination to create more of whatever it is we're placing our attention upon. Those basics, I think, are the pieces that I wish somebody would have taught me in school. I certainly wish I would have learned growing up as a child that if I would have known these basic fundamentals of life, how differently would I have approached life? How differently would I have approached school, tests, experiences? How would I have approached my career? I mean, everything would have been fundamentally different because I would have recognized that I had far more personal power in my experience than what took me, literally up into my mid-20s when I thankfully, I guess for myself, even in my mid-20s, I woke up and started to realize this. Yet still, I wish I would have known it even earlier. And I think one of the reasons why we're so passionate about sharing these basic life understandings is they are universal. Everyone's experiencing them in their own unique way. And yet if we can recognize the power of our thoughts, the power of our feelings, recognize to be present and not being stuck in the past or constantly worried about the future, these are very, very practical ways to approach life. And fundamentally, it is something we practice literally every moment of every day as a result of understanding these. And in that, love gets to flourish and thrive because we understand that placing our attention upon love and exploring and diving deep into all the potentials that reside in love, to us, it's far more interesting than the many decades we lived in fear. Because as much as fear stimulates us to do many things, love is out beyond belief, beyond any stimulation that fear can give us. The potentials that reside in love are, to coin your word, you use your word, is infinite. There's a finite experience with fear. There's an infinite experience with love.
I think you touched on a couple of really interesting things. One, the idea that getting people to think, okay, before there was this house, there was a tree, and so on and so forth. We can go back. Everything that we have now, it's to sort of illustrate to everyone how this truly is all an illusion, that we are not this physical body. I think that's a really good understanding to start with. Everything that we have as far as modern civilization, this wasn't this way even a couple hundred years ago, yet we start to believe in this odd state of permanence. But then you take that back further and further and further to maybe the primordial soup that we all grew out of as before we had this particular physical form. And it's just been a constant evolution to a higher and higher state of love. And something that I had and one thing I want to point out to everyone is these ideas aren't new. And I, in my writings that I've been doing again every day for 5 years, I don't ever put them out there like, oh my gosh, I'm the most brilliant person on the face of the earth. Look what I've written about love. No, what I do is I'll write whatever comes to me and then show for thousands of years, from Buddha to Aristotle to Da Vinci to myself now, to Harold, to John, we could go on and on and on, Deepak, Oprah, just so many great thinkers throughout the ages have all talked about love, have all shared the importance of love. And one thing that came to me the other day was, and this was what I had written about it, was creation is life is the intention, creation, life is the intention of love. For how sad and lonely was love without others to share? Yes, we have our choice always to be in fear, but the intention to be alive, the intention for everything to evolve and to work together, to have all of these other ecosystems, and this is another fascinating thing that I don't think most people know, is that only 10% of our DNA when we look in the mirror is actually human. They've started to look at us more as a superorganism, like say a piece of coral, than an individual being. We have all of these other organisms and beings, both internally and externally, that all help us to thrive. And I think we're getting back to the understanding that, on a very practical sense, love is what makes everything work. This idea of separation, this idea that fear creates of us being apart from everything, of us being apart from nature, of us needing to control nature, of us needing to control love, of us needing to control life. These are very, very false beliefs that I think we're reawakening to the fact that the way that we got here, the way that everything got here, couldn't have been through fear. Fear doesn't create anything. Fear only destroys. Love is what creates. Everything that is because of love. And like you were saying with the example of the house, what we see today wasn't here 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, depending on how old your house is. It was a tree before that. What were we before that? What will we be after that? But also, like what you pointed out, is what we have is in this moment, and what we have to experience is our choice to experience in either fear or love. And we've spent, in my opinion, far too long experiencing it as fear. And when we step back again and we look at what this has led us to time and time again, which has always been collapse, isn't it time that we moved back to love? Isn't it time that we started down a new path to build and create an illusion that is founded in truth, not the lie, the myth of fear that we've created about ourselves?
Absolutely, and that's really, having been on this journey for a while, it is the greatest joy I think John and I personally get to experience is to be singularly focused with the Love Foundation on a global reach and having daily interactions with people around the world is to be able to connect heart to heart with individuals in every corner of the planet that are awakening to love and are expressing love and expressing unity, or are striving to restore the connection to love in every way possible within their sphere of influence. And yet, in their sphere of influence, by us having the fortune to connect with them, they're influencing our sphere sometimes thousands of miles away, because each day that we get to experience these interactions, we get reinvigorated constantly with the hope of the world, the opportunity of the world, the fact that there are brilliant hearts awakening everywhere and striving to turn this we say at times a train wreck of what we've done with our planet and with our peoples and our species, and turn it around and keep it from happening, and actually saying, this is time for us to reconnect to ourselves first and foremost, because without that it really, I know that the way we've been trained and taught over millennia in our societies is to externalize everything and that we are always supposed to be in service. Well, it has been our experience that if you don't actually heal the root within, if you don't actually heal that connection to the self, if we don't actually release the baggage that we've carried in ourselves, we will continue to push buttons with each other and continue to fight and continue to argue, continue to destroy, because we don't recognize the fullness of ourselves. When we recognize our creative ability, we restore that personal power to ourselves, then we extend that recognition to all others, because at that moment we realize we are the face of everyone and everyone is the mirror back to us. And there's, and the love, and I think we all end up finding it difficult at times to find the right words as you said, there's no greater joy and no greater reward. You can't really describe how amazing it is to live with the awareness of love. I mean, and to watch people light up, and literally be privileged to see people light up right in front of you for, who knows what reason. These are the things that really, I think, inspire and stimulate us and encourage us for a really beautiful planet that is unfolding with each passing moment.
Well, and you and I talked with regards to the word love and trying to describe how that feels. There aren't words. You and I were talking on Monday about, I think you've written over 700 quotes or so all about love, and it's still not even touching on it fully. And I know I feel the same way. And you're what else can I say about love? It's become so marginalized in a way, but at the same time, I don't think there aren't enough words to describe this feeling that we want to share with people, and this understanding that we want to help them start to get to. I mean, I fully realize I am not at a destination with this, that I've got, again, and not to beat a dead horse here, but I'm on an infinite journey, and that thrills me. I'm like, oh my God, I feel this great, this moment about this discovery of what love is. What's this going to be like 1 billion years from now? How much more incredible is this experience going to get? How much more am I going to discover about what love is? Which I'd like to ask both you and John, if you could give people a starting tool, how they could begin to start to love themselves, how they could start to begin this journey. Where would each of you tell someone to begin?
Well, I have the simple word to learn how to breathe, and how to breathe. When we take a deep breath, it brings us into the present moment. It's a mini meditation because we become physically present. In other words, taking a deep breath and being conscious of the deep breath, our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies all come together. And in that deep breath, it's like a mini meditation. It disconnects us from whatever our head might be into in past and future. And from there, you can make very different choices. So my suggestion is, a beginning point is breathe. And I don't know if I just took the choice out of John, but let's see what John comes up with.
To me, it would be about intent. I think if a person has a desire to love themselves, to seek it out, they will find it. But ultimately, it's not something that's hidden from them. It's not hidden from you. It's actually right there within you. The thing that we need to do is actually release or let go of the layers that are blocking it from our consciousness. So, I mean, the question that Harold and I have had the privilege to ask many people is, do you love yourself unconditionally? And I think in the early years when, we got very excited of people to answer it in a certain way and stuff, and so we might have pushed a little bit, and we got some pushback, and then we finally let go. We realized we can still ask the question, but because it is an individual journey, it's up to each individual to find out what that means for themselves. But I do feel that, as Harold said, okay, take a deep breath, set your intent that you want to know more, you want to know who you are, and take the first steps. And that may be, it's fascinating to us in many ways is that, Harold's written, 5 books. 2 of them are very in-depth about unconditional love. And we realize that for all the words that are there, it will only trigger within an individual. So the entire experience of life, the entire experience of unconditional love is actually within you. And Harold uses the example like when somebody touches you, you feel it on your skin. Are you feeling them, or are you feeling what you're really feeling is inside of you? It's your nerve endings corresponding with your brain and synapses and all of that to give you an experience. So the entire experience that we have in life is actually within us. So the answer's, where is unconditional love? It's actually within you. That's where the experience is.
Yeah, for me, I guess it comes down to sort of this question of where do all of our experiences come from, and you guys touched on a little bit with the imagination. Where are our imaginings coming from? Where does that consciousness exist? And for me, the love consciousness awoke over an entire lifetime of really extreme experiences, both bad and good, but always seeking. My entire life I've sought out great teachers, from Joseph Campbell to one of the last books I was reading, not one of the last books I've read, but one of the last books before I had sort of my awakening to what this infinity thing meant to me, what God really was defined as for me, which is infinity, love. These are all synonymous, sort of the Holy Trinity, if you will. I was reading Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God, and he talked a lot about moving from fear to love, and that got me questioning. And I remember I walked into, I can't remember what the event was, but I'd walked in this room of crowded people, and I just overwhelmed with this feeling of love. And I went, oh my God, this feeling of love that we've made such a singular thing that I have to own this. I have to own it in an individual person or an individual thing. Why can't this be something we feel for everyone, everything, all the time? And that sparked something in me. And then I sort of did the reverse, and I went, oh my gosh, I can love myself too. I need to love myself first in order to have this feeling of unconditional love, which literally what I want everyone out there to understand is, think about your first love. Think about your truest love. Think about the anticipation of a first kiss. That is what you can feel like all the time. That might be, for me at least, the best way to describe that feeling of helping people. It's like, oh my God, I've got that weird giddiness that you're going, just how awesome it is to feel this way about another being, and then you just expand that out infinitely. But we'll bring it a little bit closer to home. Expand it out to the entire planet, to every living thing on this planet, and the planet itself, which is alive, which cares for us, to a universe that's alive, that cares for us. When we start caring for ourselves and feeling that way about that, about how we feel when we fall in love, that's when everything will change. When we fall in love with ourselves and fall in love with and allow ourselves to fall in love with everything around us, that for me at least is when everything will change, is when people go, I can feel this way all the time. Fear doesn't have to be the norm. Will fear always be there? Probably. I mean, we live in a world of comparison and duality, but we don't have to hold it on top of ourselves. It can be out there as a distant reminder, just like pain and suffering. It's like, but we don't have to hold those things. It doesn't have to be our day in, day out reality. Love can be. That falling in love doesn't need to be the exception. It can be the rule.
I use a comparison, especially before where I started in the early, the 80s and morphing into the 90s. That struggle was, for me and the people around me, a common term. Everybody was struggling through life, struggling through school, struggling through their career, struggling through their relationships. And it's interesting, in my self-awareness, my self-introspection and coming to understand love, when I found that space and that part of me where I became empowered by myself, became aware of my potentials, and that I had literally just the sheer idea of finally realizing that I had a choice in my experience, by the perspective, by the thoughts and feelings that I had, I could change my thinking. And therefore I could change my perspective, and voila, I would change my reality. Well, I changed this word from struggle to challenge, because I realized that things in life can be difficult at times, seemingly, and yet if we stay struggling, we stay forever in that oppressive mode. Whereas if I looked at things in life as a challenge, it was something that I could rise up to. One of the other comparisons I grew up with a lot, sympathy was a common phrase, still is to this day. People feel, so good when they can be sympathetic with someone. And yet with self-empowerment, self-awareness, self-love, one recognizes that everybody's got the potential that's the same of the infinite inside them. And for me, I changed the word sympathy to compassion. And I liken sympathy to be something that says, in the old way, people would look at something, they are sympathetic with it, they feel, I feel for you and your problem, and therefore I'm identifying with your problem. Whereas from an empowered standpoint, I can look at someone that may be having a difficulty or a challenge, or in their world, say a struggle, or, looking for sympathy, and I'll say compassion. I have compassion for you because I recognize you have a problem, deep problem or difficult problem in your life, and yet my compassion says that you also have the solution within you, and therefore I'm holding the space of compassion for you that you'll actually find the courage, the strength, the idea, the way out. And simple little choices like that, changing the vocabulary, it has literally changed my walking experience of life.
It really is amazing how when you come from a love perspective, there's always a solution. Always. If I get bound up in fear thinking, which can manifest itself as anger, which can manifest itself as jealousy, which can manifest itself as frustration in others' perceived inadequacies. When you move to that love perception and you're thinking, I cannot figure this out, and then you move into love, all of a sudden the answer is there. It's really remarkable how I found myself in so many situations where I'm like, there's no way I can figure out how to make this work. Take a deep breath, move into love, and all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, duh. It's pretty simple, actually. All you have to do is stop fighting and stop resisting. Stop fighting your resistance. Let your resistance be a teacher. Let your resistance be that question. Am I ready to find the solutions in my life that I'm saying that I want to find? Am I ready to find a way to be with this person that I thought there's no way I can manage? Once you let go of those feelings of control and you let love take over and you come from that perspective of endless opportunity, abundance, endless solutions, you have answers that you would never find any other way else. And you have to, I think, really let yourself go. You have to stop fighting. You have to let yourself go with the flow, and the answers come to you. Speaking for myself, I don't know where they come, but I know if I allow them to come, they do.
Well, exactly. And as you were talking, I was thinking that one of our favorite words in this new love-based reality is collaboration. And
Absolutely.
It occurred to me, like, fear competes. And
Yes.
I grew up in a world, again, where competition was and is still very prevalent upon the planet. And yet in the circle of encounters and the people that I get to interact with worldwide, the theme with the heart-centered individuals is they want to collaborate. In other words, solutions that benefit everybody. And I've come to know that when one comes from the point of love, the solutions that come forth through the energy of love always benefit the whole. And the solutions that come through limited thinking, fearful thinking, separation thinking, competition, competitiveness, they really only benefit a singular. And we need to, because the planet works in unity and harmony and wholeness. Nature works
Absolutely.
in unity, harmony, and wholeness. And it's time for humanity to return to this wholeness. And it is, you said at the very beginning, we're pioneers. It is an interesting place to be. We certainly aren't the first. It's been, these are timeless truths, as you so rightly stated. There's nothing new. What's new is to reapply them, remember them, reconnect to them in this particular moment in time-space continuum, in this particular moment where we have 7 billion people on the planet striving, struggling, challenged, frustrated, sympathetic, compassionate. It's a complete mixture, and yet in it, in the very core of humanity, there's a light that is glowing and growing faster and brighter, and the hearts are awakening and they are opening up, and it's a fascinating time to be, on the planet, to have and be able to participate consciously. I think at times, if there's nothing else, as much as we love to love, we love to encourage and inspire people just to pay attention to the bigger picture, because when you pay attention to the bigger picture, there's such magnificence happening all around us every moment. All we need to do is just open our eyes a bit wider, our heart a bit wider, or open our mind a bit wider, and you'll get to have much more of an experience than the limited experience that I think we all originally started out with.
Unfortunately, we are getting to the end of our hour. I could literally keep going for another 4, which I think was about our record conversation one time, Harold.
Yes, I think so.
Without break or interruption. Before I want to play us out with the song that Carol Hulse sent to me this week, and again ask our listeners to send in their suggestions for songs that we can play on the show to justlovemovementradio@gmail.com. But before we get to That's What's Up, could you give us places that people can find your work, where they can reach out to the Love Foundation and what you guys have going on, and then we'll play out with the song.
Sure. You can reach us anytime through our main website, thelovefoundation.com. We are on all the social sites, Google+, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have great interaction with people. We have a variety of groups. All of that can be found and accessed through our main website, thelovefoundation.com. All of our programs that we do worldwide, our country coordinators, our state coordinators, it's all through the main website. And from there you can find all the information and all the redirects for the places that you frequent the most.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. If you could stay on for just a second while the song's playing, I'd love to wrap up the show with you guys afterwards.
Thanks.
I'll be the church, you'll be the steeple. I'll be the king, I'll be the people. Well, I was feeling such a mess, I thought you'd leave me behind. Well, I was being such a wreck, I thought you'd treat me unkind. Tell me, change my mind. I'll be the sun, you'll be the shining. You'll be the clock, I'll be the timing. Well, I was feeling such a mess, I thought you'd leave me behind. Well, I was feeling so upset, I thought the sun never shine. Then I found forever. Hey, we've been best friends forever, darling. That's what's up. Forever, no matter what. You've got my love to lean on, darling. That's what's up. You've got my love to lean on, darling, no matter what. You be the book, I'll be the binding. You be the words, I'll be the rhyming. Well, I was feeling such a wreck, I thought of losing my mind. Well, I was feeling such a mess, I thought the sun never shine. Be the bird, I'll be the feather.
Well,
We'll be the best of friends forever. Well, I was feeling such a mess, I thought you'd leave me behind. Well, I was feeling such a wreck, I thought you'd treat me unkind. Then I found forever and always. You've got my love to lean on, darling, all the days. Forever, come on in. You've got my love to lean on, darling, all the days. You've got my love to lean on, darling, all the up. Oh, that's what's up. Oh, that's what's up.
This is Jack McKenzie, and you're listening to WLOR.
John, Harold, are you there?